Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're embarking on a fascinating journey through a pretty comprehensive collection of recent developments pulled straight from official sources. Our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, and really make you incredibly well-informed on India's social, economic, and political landscape.
Exactly.
This deep dive is packed with insights, perfect for anyone looking to quickly grasp critical information. Maybe you're prepping for an exam, catching up on key policies, or just, intensely curious about what's shaping our nation. We've got everything from health initiatives to economic indicators, global diplomacy, all presented in a way that helps you understand not just what happened, but why it actually matters.
That's right. We're going beyond just the headlines today. We'll look at the factual details behind these crucial updates, offering a clear, structured overview. Think of this as your essential brief, really, designed to give you the context you need to connect the dots across various sectors.
Okay then, let's unpack this incredible stack of information and see what really stands out for us today. Kicking things off in the social sector, particularly public health, we have an important update on a significant and, long-standing challenge. What can you tell us about the latest efforts to tackle sickle cell disease?
Well, the focus recently has been on World Sickle Cell Day. That's observed annually on June 19th. The Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, or DEPWD, that falls under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, they organize nationwide awareness programs for it.
Right.
And this is a crucial hereditary blood disorder, and it disproportionately affects India's tribal populations.
So we know it's a critical issue for tribal communities. What are the concrete initiatives that have been announced to, combat it?
Okay, so the Ministry of Tribal Affairs has really stepped up here. They've announced the Bhagwan Birsa Munda Prize. This offers substantial funding, up to 10 crore actually, for developing a new sickle cell disease SCD drug.
10 crore, that's significant.
It is. And on top of that, there's a new Advanced Center for Tribal Health and Research Institute being established under AIIMS Delhi. This institute is going to be key in supporting policy development and direct care for these vulnerable tribal communities.
And what about immediate care? Diagnostics on the ground?
Yeah, good question. To ensure widespread access to advanced care, a Center of Competence, or COTC, for state-of-the-art SCD diagnostics and treatment was launched. These centers will be operational by November 2025 across 15 tertiary care hospitals, including AIIMS.
Okay, so if we step back a bit, what does this multifaceted approach really signify for the broader effort to eliminate SCD in India?
It signifies a truly ambitious, multi-pronged national commitment. At its core is the National Sickle Cell Anemia Elimination Mission. This was introduced in the Union Budget 2023 and launched from Madhya Pradesh back in July 2023.
Right, I remember that launch.
Its target is aggressive. Completely eliminate SCD as a public health problem in India before 2047. The mission aims to cover, 365 districts across 17 states where SCD is prevalent. And the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is the nodal ministry here. This isn't just about healthcare, It's a profound commitment to social equity, specifically addressing a health disparity that has historically marginalized tribal communities.
So the challenge isn't just the science, it's delivery too.
Absolutely. The challenge lies not just in drug development, but in that crucial last-mile delivery and, importantly, sustained public awareness campaigns. That's where this multi-pronged approach really becomes, innovative.
Okay. Beyond healthcare, another vital social initiative addresses the pervasive issue of substance abuse. What's the latest on that front?
Right. The Department of Social Justice and Empowerment recently celebrated the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. That was on June 26th. They did this through various events under the Nasha Mukt Abhiyaan, or NMBA. This day, also known as World Drug Day, was actually designated by the UN General Assembly way back in 1987.
And the theme this year?
A powerful one. Break the cycle. #StopOrganizedCrime. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, led the global observance.
That's a strong outline for NMBA. But, addiction is deeply personal. How are these initiatives designed to ensure community buy-in and destigmatization beyond just awareness campaigns?
That's a key point. Accessibility and outreach are central. So all the addiction facilities across the country have now been geotagged. Makes them much easier for the public to find and access.
Okay.
The NMBA itself, launched in 2020, just marked its 5th anniversary in April 2025. It's a Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment initiative focusing on a wide spectrum: awareness, prevention, and treatment, with a special emphasis on vulnerable populations.
And the community connection.
Right. To ensure broad reach, there's a toll-free helpline, 14446, offering de-addiction support. And critically, MyUs have been signed with 6 spiritual and social service organizations. This collaboration leverages existing community networks to conduct mass awareness activities and hopefully promote a more supportive environment, tackling that stigma you mentioned.
With those social efforts in mind, let's also look at how India is strengthening its international ties, global environmental collaboration, economic partnerships. What's new regarding the International Big Cat Alliance?
Right. We're seeing significant progress with the International Big Cat Alliance, or IBCA. Its first assembly was convened recently, chaired by India's Union Minister of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change.
And what were the major decisions? Any key outcomes from this assembly?
Well, the assembly endorsed Shri Bhupendra Yadav as president and Shri S.P. Yadav as Director General of IBCA unanimously. But more critically, they ratified the headquarters agreement between IBCA and India.
So that makes it official.
Exactly. It means IBCA can now officially establish its headquarters and offices in India, granting it international legal personality. This is actually a huge step for global conservation efforts focused on these animals.
Could you elaborate a bit more on the IBCA itself? What's its main focus?
Sure. The IBCA was launched in 2023 during the 50 Years of Project Tiger event. Its core mission is really to drive global big cat conservation through collaboration across borders. It officially became a treaty-based intergovernmental organization on January 23, 2025.
And which cats does it cover?
It focuses on 7 big cat species: tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, cheetah, jaguar, and puma across 95 range countries. As of now, 9 countries are full members, and 27, including India, have formally consented to join, so it's gaining momentum.
Okay. Shifting focus now to disaster preparedness. We have updates from the 7th International Conference on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, ICDRI.
Yes, this conference saw the Prime Minister addressing the delegates. It was held in France this time, with the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, or CDRI, co-chairing. The theme was particularly relevant: shaping a resilient future for coastal regions. And interestingly, this was the first time the conference was held in Europe.
What were India's key priorities highlighted at this international gathering? What did India push for?
India put forward 5 global priorities. First, integrating disaster resilience into educational frameworks. Second, creating a global digital repository for disaster-related data. Then, developing innovative financing mechanisms, placing a special focus on small island developing states, SIDs, and crucially, strengthening early warning systems globally.
Right. And for those less familiar, how does the CDRI actually function? Is it a binding organization?
Good question. The CDRI, launched back in 2019 at the UN Climate Action Summit, is essentially a multi-stakeholder partnership. It aims to promote infrastructure resilience against natural disasters. It's not legally binding, but its core costs for the first 5 years are significantly funded by India. Its secretariat is based right here in New Delhi.
And membership is growing.
Yes. A significant recent development is that the African Union, the AU, joined CDRI as its 54th member. That happened on World Environment Day, June 5, 2025. Really broadens its reach and collaborative potential.
Following up on conservation efforts, let's look at Project Elephant. What's happening there?
The Union Minister for Environment, Forest, and Climate Change recently chaired the 21st Steering Committee meeting of Project Elephant. The main agenda was reviewing ongoing conservation efforts and, critically, addressing that growing challenge of human-elephant conflict.
Were there any specific outputs from the meeting?
Yes. Important documents were released, including the latest edition of Trumpet, which is the quarterly Project Elephant newsletter.
And what are the upcoming plans? Any future initiatives for Project Elephant?
Looking ahead, World Elephant Day will be celebrated on August 12, 2025, down in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. Also, a significant 3-year elephant tracking study is set to start in Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. That should provide vital data for conservation strategies. Plus, a comprehensive conservation strategy is being developed for the Ripuchirang Elephant Reserve in Assam. So a very focused approach to protecting these crucial habitats.
Okay. Shifting gears to ocean health now. Updates from the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference, UNOC3.
India was an active participant in UNOC3 in Nice. They emphasized the urgent need for global cooperation to protect ocean health. India voiced strong support for swift ratification of the BBNJ agreement, that's the High Seas Treaty, and pushed for a legally binding global plastics treaty.
Any specific Indian contributions announced?
Yes, a notable one was the launch of the Sahed portal. It's a new digital ocean data platform designed to promote transparency and support science-based ocean management.
Now, what about global platforms specifically focused on disaster risk reduction?
The 8th session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, GP 2025, was recently organized. It was run by the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR, and hosted by Switzerland in Geneva. Its theme was very action-oriented. Every day counts. Act for resilience today.
This event builds on a pretty crucial framework, doesn't it? Can you quickly explain its significance?
Yes, absolutely. It directly builds on the midterm review of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. That's the 2015-2030 plan. This is the global agreement adopted back in 2015, and its main goal is to substantially reduce disaster risk and losses worldwide.
And it connects to other goals.
Exactly. It works hand in hand with other 2030 Agenda agreements like the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The UNDR actively supports its implementation. The framework itself is quite detailed. It outlines one main goal, 4 priorities for action, and 7 global targets for 2030. These include significantly reducing global disaster mortality and economic loss, and importantly, increasing the reach and effectiveness of early warning systems.
Okay. And finally, in environmental news, we've seen a significant expansion of India's protected wetlands. What are the latest additions?
Yes, some good news here. India added 2 new Ramsar sites in Rajasthan. Kichan in Phalodi and Mannar in Udaipur were officially added just before World Environment Day, June 5, 2025.
What makes these specific sites so important? Why were they chosen?
Well, Mannar is actually celebrated locally as the Bird Village. It's recognized for its remarkable community-driven conservation success, a real testament to local efforts.
Oh, that's great.
And Kichan is renowned for hosting thousands of migratory demoiselle cranes each year. Apparently, it's quite a spectacle. These additions bring India's total Ramsar site count to 91 now. Rajasthan has 4, while Tamil Nadu leads the country with 20, followed by Uttar Pradesh with 10.
So India's leading in Asia.
Yes, India now leads Asia in the number of Ramsar sites and ranks 3rd globally, just after the UK and Mexico.
For those less familiar, could you quickly explain what a Ramsar site designation actually entails?
Of course. Ramsar sites are wetlands deemed to be of international importance. They're recognized under the Ramsar Convention, which was signed way back in 1971 in Ramsar, Iran. India ratified this convention on February 1, 1982. These wetlands are incredibly vital ecosystems. They play crucial roles in, maintaining biodiversity, mitigating floods, purifying water, and storing carbon.
And what about the Montreux record? How does that relate to these sites?
Right. The Montreux record is a specific register within the Ramsar framework. It lists Ramsar sites where significant ecological changes have occurred or are likely to occur, mainly due to human interference or development. Currently, Keeladeo National Park in Rajasthan is on this record. Interestingly, Chilika Lake in Odisha was initially listed, but was later removed, a real success story for conservation efforts there.
That's a great distinction, which prompts the question, what active initiatives are being taken in India to conserve these vital wetlands beyond just listing them?
Good point. There are 2 key initiatives I'd highlight. First, the Amrit Dharohar Initiative, launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MoEFCC, in 2023 for 3 years. Its goal is to promote the unique conservation values of Ramsar sites, generate local employment through sustainable practices, and support local livelihoods. It has 4 key components: species and habitat conservation, nature tourism, wetlands livelihood, and wetlands carbon.
Okay. And the second one?
The second is Mission Sabagita, launched in 2022. This one focuses specifically on mainstreaming wetland conservation directly into broader development planning across the country, trying to integrate it, right from the start.
Let's transition now to a sector that profoundly impacts everyone's daily lives: employment generation, youth empowerment, and crucial gender issues. What's happening with the CPWD Labor Skill Training Program?
The CPWD Labor Skill Training Program is definitely making significant strides. The Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs recently distributed skill certificates to workers trained under this initiative.
Okay, what are the key details? How does it aim to boost skilled labor in the construction sector?
Well, this program is a collaborative effort with the National Real Estate Development Council, NAREDCO. They have pretty ambitious plans. train 10,000 workers in the current financial year, FY25, and then ramp up to 25,000 in FY26.
Wow. And how do they ensure contractors use skilled labor?
There's a mandate now. Contractors working on projects exceeding 10,000 crore must ensure that 20% of their workforce is certified skilled. If not, they have to provide on-site training themselves.
And how are they incorporating sustainability, green practices in these construction projects?
A good example is the GPRA redevelopment project. It's using modern construction tech like aluminum shuttering and self-compacting concrete, and it's aiming for a GRHA 4-star rating.
GRIHA. Remind us what that is.
Sure. GRAHA stands for Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment. It's India's national rating system for green buildings. Developed by TERI, adopted by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy back in 2007. A 4-star rating means the project scores highly, between 81 and 90 points out of 100, based on 34 specific environmental criteria. So it indicates a high level of environmental performance.
Okay. Next, an exciting development aimed at youth empowerment. Tell us about the Bharat 2.0 platform.
Yes, this is quite significant. The Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports has signed an MOU with Digital India Corporation specifically to develop this upgraded platform.
An upgraded platform. What exactly is Bharat 2.0 aiming to achieve? What's new?
It's envisioned as a single-window digital ecosystem for, well, comprehensive youth empowerment, and it aligns directly with the vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. It plans to integrate advanced AI-driven tools, things like a smart CV builder, personalized digital profiles, AI-powered chatbots.
AI integration, okay.
Yes, and critically, voice-assisted navigation to make it more accessible. There will be dedicated sections for national career services, a mentorship hub, even Fit India. And it will all be seamlessly integrated with major national digital platforms like Aadhaar and DigiLocker.
I'm genuinely curious, what specific innovations in Bharat 2.0 make its evolution, as you say, fascinating and potentially transformative for youth empowerment beyond just adding more features?
Well, what's really transformative about version 2.0 is how it expands the scope. The original version, launched October 2023, focused mainly on volunteerism and basic skill development.
Right.
Version 2.0 takes that much further. It leverages AI, real-time interactivity, multilingual interfaces. It's designed to help young people navigate everything from finding jobs and internships to engaging in community service, accessing mentorship, all through one intuitive, personalized platform. So it's moving from just being a portal to being more like a dynamic guide for career and personal growth. That's the potentially transformative part.
Got it. Now let's turn to initiatives specifically empowering women, starting with the tourism sector. What's happening there?
The Minister of State for Women and Child Development recently reviewed the implementation of the Safe Tourism Destination for Women project in Madhya Pradesh. This particular project gets its funding from the NAVYA Fund.
Okay. What are the core features of this project? How does it aim to ensure women's safety and also their participation in tourism?
So this project was launched by the Madhya Pradesh Tourism Board under the Nodal Ministry of Women and Child Development, MoWCD. It has a dual aim, ensuring women's safety at tourist destinations, and also empowering them through employment and direct participation in the tourism sector. It's actually the first project ever sanctioned under the NABARD fund of the MoWCD.
Really? The first one?
Yes, and it has specific targets. Training 40,000 women and girls in self-defense, providing skill development for 10,000 women, and creating 5,000 job opportunities in tourism. This covers 50 tourist destinations across 33 districts of Madhya Pradesh. Quite extensive.
You mentioned the Nearby Fund. Could you tell us a bit more about that? It's a dedicated fund, isn't it?
Indeed it is. The NABARD Fund was launched back in 2013. It's a non-lapsable corpus fund, meaning the money doesn't expire at the end of the financial year. It's administered by the Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. But the MoWCD plays that crucial role as the nodal ministry. They appraise and recommend proposals that can draw from this fund for women's safety and empowerment projects.
Okay. Another significant step towards gender parity is the concept of gender budgeting. What's new in this area?
The Ministry of Women and Child Development recently organized the first national consultation on gender budgeting. And importantly, they also launched the Gender Budgeting Knowledge Hub portal.
What's the main objective behind these initiatives? What are they trying to achieve?
The primary objective is really to strengthen gender budgeting processes across all government sectors and, crucially, to facilitate the sharing of best practices among different departments and states. And to give you a sense of scale, The gender budget for the current financial year, FY 2025-26, is substantial 4.49 lakh crore. That's a 37% increase from the previous year.
Wow, 37%.
Yeah, quite a jump. Remember, gender budgeting itself was introduced as a fiscal reporting tool back in 2005-06. It's all about promoting gender-responsive governance and enhancing women's empowerment through more inclusive budgeting practices.
And we also have news of a new initiative focused on skilling adolescent girls.
Yes, the government launched NAVYA. That stands for Nurturing Aspirations Through Vocational Training for Young Adolescent Girls. This is a collaborative effort involving both the MoWCD and the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, MSDE.
What's NAVYA's specific objective, and who exactly does it target?
NAVYA aims to empower adolescent girls, specifically those between 16 and 18 years old, who have at least a Class 10 education. The program focuses on providing them with vocational skills, particularly in non-traditional sectors, the idea being to promote women-led development. Girls identified by the MoWCD will receive short-term vocational training under the existing Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana.
And the rollout.
The pilot phase covered 9 districts across 9 states. Now, there are plans for broader territorial coverage, 27 districts across 19 states, including some aspirational districts, so it's scaling up significantly.
Now let's dive into social justice and updates within the Indian political system. We have some interesting statistics and appointments to discuss. What's the latest on India's social protection coverage?
Okay, we have some truly remarkable data here from the International Labor Organization, the ILO. According to them, India's social protection coverage has seen an incredible expansion. It's risen from just 19% back in 2015 to 64.3% in 2025.
64%. That's a huge jump.
It is. It's a 45 percentage point increase, marking the fastest expansion globally, according to the ILO.
That's truly substantial. What challenges did India overcome to achieve this rapid expansion, and what indicators suggest its sustainability? Is this a lasting change?
Well, the announcement was made during the 113th session of the International Labor Conference in Geneva. The data is available on the ILO's ILO-Stat dashboard. The ILO assesses coverage across 9 categories, things like health, old age pensions, maternity benefits. India's impressive growth is largely attributed to the ILO, including data from 32 different central and state schemes in its assessment. 24 of those are related to pensions.
So consolidating data helped reveal the true picture.
Exactly. India is actually the first country to update its 2025 social protection data in the ILO-Stat database. India also highlighted its own national-level social protection data pooling exercise done with the ILO. Phase I focused on central and women-centric schemes in 8 states. Phase 2 is now underway and is expected to push India's coverage beyond 100 crore beneficiaries. The scale and the systematic approach suggest sustainability. It's not just one-off programs, but a consolidated national effort integrating data across schemes.
Understood. For our listeners who might not be familiar with it, could you give us a quick overview of the International Labor Organization itself?
Sure. The ILO was created way back in 1919 as part of the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I. Makes it one of the oldest international organizations. It became a specialized UN agency in 1946. Headquartered in Geneva, it's unique because it's the only tripartite UN agency.
Tripartite meaning?
Meaning it brings together governments, employers, and workers' representatives from its 187 member states to set labor standards and policies. It even won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1969.
Okay. Moving on, what can you tell us about a new digital initiative specifically for tribal communities?
The Ministry of Tribal Affairs recently launched the Adi Karmyogi beta version. This happened during the national conference called Abhiyaan. This is the ministry's flagship program aimed at capacity building for around 20 lakh stakeholders. The goal is outreach to 1 lakh tribal villages, and habitations are a really ambitious target for digital inclusion and skill development in those communities.
Next, an important appointment to the 16th Finance Commission, or XVIFC. Who's been appointed?
Shri T. Ravi Shankar, who is currently a deputy governor of the RBI, has been appointed by the President of India as a part-time member of the 16th Finance Commission.
What's the core role of the Finance Commission within India's federal financial structure?
The Finance Commission is a vital constitutional body. It's set up every 5 years under Article 280 of the Constitution. Its primary role is to assess the financial relationship between the central government and the state governments. The 16th Finance Commission, constituted on December 31st, 2023, is chaired by Dr. Arvind Panagaria. Its main job is to recommend how tax revenues should be distributed between the center and states, and also to lay down principles for grants and aid to the states.
And when are their recommendations due?
They're due by October 31st, 2025, and will cover the 5-year award period starting April 1st, 2026.
Okay. Another significant step towards digitalization and governance. The National e-Vidhan application, or NeVA. What's the latest there?
The Union Minister of Parliamentary Affairs recently inaugurated NeVA for the Puducherry Legislative Assembly. This is a Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs initiative driven by the vision of One Nation, One Application. The aim is to digitize legislative proceedings across all 37 state and union territory legislatures, make them paperless.
What are the key features that make NeVA a potentially powerful tool for legislative transparency and efficiency?
Well, NEVA operates on a central funding model, approved back in January 2020. The platform itself is hosted on Meghraj 2.0, that's India's secure government cloud infrastructure, ensures scalability and data security.
And functionality.
It integrates with Bharat for language translation and utilizes AML-powered real-time translation. This is crucial for promoting linguistic inclusivity across India's diverse legislative bodies. As of June 2025, 28 legislatures have signed MOUs to adopt NeVA, and 18 have already fully digitized the proceedings using it.
Any state leading the way?
Yes, the Bihar Legislative Council was actually the first house to fully transition to NeVA back in 2021.
And finally, in this segment, a key meeting of a zonal council took place.
That's right. The Union Home Minister chaired the 25th meeting of the Central Zonal Council. This was held in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh, and organized by the Interstate Council Secretariat.
Could you clarify for us what these zonal councils are? Are they constitutional bodies? What's their main function?
Good question. They are statutory bodies, not constitutional. They were created by an act of parliament, the States Reorganization Act of 1956. Their primary function is advisory. They aim to promote cooperation and coordination between states within a zone on matters of common interest. There are 5 zonal councils in India, and the Union Home Minister chairs all of them. The Central Zonal Council, which met recently, includes Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Uttarakhand.
Let's broaden our view now to India's role in global diplomacy and regional economic cooperation, starting with a bilateral investment treaty, India and Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, we're talking about the India-Kyrgyzstan Bilateral Investment Treaty, or BIT. It was originally signed back in June 2019, but it officially entered into force very recently on June 5, 2025. This replaces an older agreement from the year 2000.
Okay. What are the core objectives of this new BIT? What makes it distinct from maybe older agreements?
Its main goal is to create a more secure and predictable investment environment. And of course, to promote and protect the interests of investors from both India and Kyrgyzstan. What makes it distinct is that it deliberately excludes the most favored nation, or MFN, clause. This is often done now to prevent potential misuse or treaty shopping.
Interesting. Any other key features?
Yes, it also incorporates important exception clauses. These cover things like environmental protection, public health, and national security interests, ensuring investment doesn't override these critical concerns.
And how does this treaty handle disputes between investors and the state?
It requires mandatory exhaustion of local remedies first, meaning investors must pursue legal options within the host country's courts before resorting to international arbitration. It also actively promotes alternate dispute resolution mechanisms like mediation, encouraging parties to resolve conflicts outside of formal litigation where possible.
Okay. Shifting to broader economic support, how is the Asian Development Bank, ADB, supporting India's goals?
The ADB has announced its readiness to provide quite significant financial support. They're offering up to $4.5 billion annually in sovereign loans to India. And additionally, they're looking at providing about $1 billion in private sector financing annually. All of this is geared towards supporting India's ambitious Viksit Bharat 2047 vision.
So it's both public and private sector support.
Yes, and they also aim to mobilize additional third-party capital for large-scale projects, showing a deeper commitment beyond just their own lending.
One particularly compelling aspect mentioned is the focus on urban transformation. What can you tell us about that initiative?
Right. The ADB has launched a specific 5-year urban transformation initiative aiming to mobilize up to $10 billion. This initiative is anchored by India's own Urban Challenge Fund, or UCF. The UCF itself was announced in the budget 2025-2026 with a substantial allocation of 1 lakh crore.
1 lakh crore for the UCF. And how does it work?
It envisions Indian cities as key growth hubs. The fund will finance up to 25% of bankable urban projects, but with a critical stipulation. At least 50% of the project's funding must come from other sources, like bonds, bank loans, or public-private partnerships, PPPs. The ADB will further support this by providing $3 million in technical assistance for things like project design and capacity building for the cities involved.
Could you give us a quick background on the Asian Development Bank? When was it founded?
Sure, the ADB was founded in 1966. It's a leading multilateral development bank focused on supporting growth and cooperation across Asia and the Pacific. It currently has 69 members, and it began its operations in India back in 1986, so India is a very long-standing partner and borrower.
Okay. Moving to high-level international summits, we have news regarding the Group of Seven, or G7.
Yes, the Prime Minister received an invitation from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to attend the 51st G7 Summit. It's scheduled for June 2025 in Kananaskis, Canada. This marks the 7th time Canada has held the G7 presidency.
And India has become a regular presence at these summits recently, hasn't it?
Indeed. The Indian Prime Minister will be attending for the 6th consecutive time since 2019. India is invited as an outreach country, or guest, by Canada this year. This makes it India's 12th overall participation at a G7 summit. It really signifies India's growing importance on the global stage, even though it's not a formal member.
What's the origin story of the G7? How did it start, and how is it structured today?
Well, the G7 actually originated in response to the 1973 energy crisis. Its first summit was held in 1975. Its 7 members are Italy, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, the UK, and the USA. The European Union also participates fully in the summits, though it doesn't hold the rotating presidency.
Any specific goals they're focusing on currently?
One notable goal they've set is to support 200 million women joining the global workforce by 2035, primarily through strategic investments in childcare infrastructure and policies.
Next, we have an interesting development in maritime cooperation within the QAD group.
Yes, the Quad Nations Coast Guards have launched their first ever at-sea observer mission. This is quite a significant step aimed at enhancing maritime cooperation and security, specifically within the Indo-Pacific region.
First ever. What's the real significance of this inaugural mission? What does it signal?
It was launched under the Wilmington Declaration, and being the very first cross-embarkation initiative among the Quad Coast Guards is key. It directly supports the vision that was articulated at the Quad Leader Summit back in September 2024. It essentially lays the groundwork for what they're calling a Quad Coast Guard handshake.
A handshake?
Yes, signaling a commitment to build long-term regional maritime collaboration and, importantly, interoperability between their forces.
Okay. We also have news about an important meeting for the SEO defense ministers.
That's right. The Raksha Mantri, India's defense minister, participated in the SEO defense ministers meeting, which was held this time in Qingdao, China. During the meeting, he strongly emphasized the crucial role of RAT, that's the regional anti-terrorist structure of the SEO, in effectively tackling radicalization. He also highlighted the pressing importance of countering emerging threats like drone-enabled smuggling and various cyber threats, which are becoming increasingly prevalent.
Was a joint statement adopted at the end of this meeting?
No, interestingly, a joint statement was not adopted. India declined to endorse it. As SEO operates on consensus, this meant a consensus couldn't be reached, particularly on the sensitive issue of terrorism and how it's defined or addressed. It signals India's independent and firm stance on counterterrorism narratives.
Understood. For our listeners, could you quickly explain what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SEO, actually is? It's quite a large grouping.
It is. The SEO was established in 2001, and it's arguably the world's largest regional organization in terms of both geographic scope and population. It covers about 40% of the world population and roughly 30% of global GDP. It has 2 permanent bodies, the Secretariat, based in Beijing, and the Executive Committee of RATs, which is located in Tashkent.
And the membership?
The SEO currently has 10 full-time members. This group includes India and Pakistan, both of whom joined back in 2017.
Finally, let's talk about boosting tourism and connectivity, specifically with ASEAN nations.
Right. The first ever ASEAN-India Cruise Dialogue 2025 was inaugurated recently in Chennai. This significant event, hosted by the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, MOPSW, aims specifically to strengthen cruise tourism cooperation between India and the ASEAN bloc.
What are India's specific plans announced in this area? What's the ambition?
India announced a pretty ambitious plan to professionalize 5,000 kilometers of navigable waterways. This is specifically targeted for enhanced cruise connectivity with ASEAN nations. Under the existing Sagarmala initiative, India has set a target to increase its overall cruise passenger traffic to 1 million by 2029. This dialogue aligns perfectly with the broader visions of Viksit Bharat 2047 and the ASEAN Community Vision 2045, highlighting that shared focus on regional growth and connectivity.
Could you provide a quick background on ASEAN itself for our audience?
Sure. ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, was established back in 1967. It currently comprises 10 member states in Southeast Asia. India's relationship with ASEAN has deepened considerably over the years. It evolved from being just a sectoral partner in 1992 to becoming a comprehensive strategic partner in 2022.
And trade ties.
Yes, the ASEAN-India Trade and Goods Agreement, or ITIGA, signed in 2009, is currently under review. That review is expected to conclude sometime in 2025, potentially upgrading the trade relationship further.
All right, let's delve into the crucial areas of monetary and fiscal policy now, and also touch upon significant industrial developments. What's the latest from the Financial Stability and Development Council?
We can start with monetary policy, specifically the 29th meeting of the Financial Stability and Development Council, or FSDC. This was chaired by the Union Minister for Finance.
Could you explain what the FSDC is? What's its role in India's financial system?
Certainly. The FSDC was established back in December 2010. It was based on a recommendation from the Raghuram Rajan Committee on Financial Sector Reforms. It serves as the apex body, the top forum, tasked with maintaining financial stability across the system and ensuring robust inter-regulatory coordination among all the financial regulators, RBI, SEBI, RDI, PFRDA, etc.
And who heads it?
The Union Finance Minister is its chairperson, and it has an important subcommittee which is chaired by the RBI governor, focusing more on the operational aspects and inter-regulatory issues.
Okay. Next, an important review concerning direct taxes.
Yes, the Union Finance Minister recently chaired a conclave with the principal chief commissioners of income tax. The main purpose was to review the performance and assess the impact of recent reforms undertaken by the Central Board of Direct Taxes, or CBDT.
What were the key revisions announced regarding monetary thresholds for filing appeals? Did those change?
Yes, they did, quite significantly. As per the Union Budget 2024-25, the monetary limits for the tax department to file appeals have been raised. For appealing to the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, or ITAT, the limit is now 60 lakh. For appealing to the High Court, it's 2 crore, and for the Supreme Court, it's 5 crore.
So higher thresholds. What's the goal there?
The aim is mainly to reduce government litigation, focusing the department's resources on higher value cases. The finance minister also directed improvements in grievance redressal through platforms like CPWD and e-Nivaran. e-Nivaran, you might recall, is that unified grievance management system developed by the Income Tax Department back in 2016.
Right. And moving to the central bank, a significant announcement from the RBI's monetary policy meeting. What was the big news there?
The big headline on June 6, 2025, was the RBI announcing a 100 basis point cut in the cash reserve ratio, or CRR, that takes it down from 4% to 3%.
Okay, 100 basis points. For those who aren't financial experts, could you give us a quick, simple explanation of how a CRR cut directly injects liquidity into the banking system? What effect does that typically have on the economy?
Absolutely. So a basis point is just 1/100th of a percentage point. A 100 basis point cut means a full 1% reduction in the CRR. This cut, importantly, will be implemented in 4 stages, 4 tranches of 25 basis points each, starting from September 6, 2025.
And what is the CRR?
The CRR is the percentage of a bank's total deposits that it must hold as cash reserves with the RBI. They can't lend this money out. So by reducing this requirement from 4% to 3%, the RBI essentially frees up funds for the banks. In this case, it's estimated to inject about 2.5 lakh crore of liquidity directly into the banking system.
And the effect?
This measure is expected to significantly support credit growth, make it easier for banks to lend and improve monetary transmission, meaning the RBI's policy changes flow through to lending rates more effectively. The idea is to make borrowing potentially cheaper and easier, stimulating economic activity. Alongside the CRR cut, the repo rate was also reduced by 50 basis points to 5.50%. This marked the 3rd consecutive repo rate cut in 2025.
And the policy stance changed, too.
Yes, importantly, the policy stance was changed from accommodative, meaning leaning towards easing policy, to neutral. This signals a shift, maybe indicating the rate cut cycle might be nearing its end, or at least pausing.
How did the RBI revise its inflation and GDP forecast following these policy changes? Did they adjust expectations?
Yes, they did. The RBI revised its Consumer Price Index, or CPI, inflation forecast for the financial year FY26 downwards. They now expect it to be 3.7%, down from the earlier 4.0%. They cited easing pressures in food and fuel prices as the main reason. Interestingly, though, real GDP growth projections for the second half of FY26 were kept unchanged. This indicates confidence in the underlying economic activity despite the lower inflation forecast.
Okay. Moving to industrial developments now. What are the updates on the GEM, the Government E-Marketplace portal?
Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh recently announced some key policy reforms. These aim to enhance autonomy and flexibility within India's research ecosystem, particularly concerning procurement through the GEM portal.
What are these key reforms? How do they actually benefit research institutions on the ground?
These reforms empower the institutions more directly. Heads of institutions like directors of research labs or vice chancellors of universities can now procure specialized equipment and materials without mandatorily having to use the GEM portal if needed. They can also approve global tender inquiries up to 200 crore themselves.
So more flexibility for specialized needs.
Exactly. Additionally, the general financial thresholds under the General Financial Rules, or GFR, were revised. Direct purchase limits without tender were increased to 2 lakh, and the limit for limited tender inquiries went up to 1 crore. These changes should streamline procurement specifically for research, fostering faster access to critical tools and resources needed for R&D.
Another critical area for industrial development is Special Economic Zones, or SEZs. What amendments have been made recently to make them more attractive, particularly for certain sectors?
Right. In a major push, especially to promote semiconductor and electronic component manufacturing, the government notified some significant amendments to the SEZ rules of 2006.
These changes sound substantial. What's the practical impact? What's the significance for a business, say a chip manufacturer, looking to set up in an SEZ now?
The most impactful change, arguably, is the reduction in the minimum land requirement for SEZs that are set up exclusively for these sectors, semiconductors and electronic components. It's been reduced drastically from 50 hectares down to just 10 hectares.
10 hectares. That's a big difference.
Huge difference. It essentially means it's now far quicker and less capital-intensive for a company, especially in the high-cost semiconductor space, to establish operations in these zones. It significantly lowers a major barrier to entry for high-tech manufacturing. Other reforms include relaxing the encumbrance-free land norms. Now, land that's leased or even mortgaged to the government can be allowed, with board of approval consent. They've also included free-of-cost goods in the net foreign exchange NFE calculation, which helps with export obligations. And importantly, they've introduced permission for sale into the domestic tariff area, DTA, meaning selling within India after paying applicable duties.
So easier setup and more operational flexibility.
Precisely. All these changes are designed to address the specific challenges of the semiconductor industry, its capital-intensive nature, reliance on imports, and often longer gestation periods before production starts.
This raises an important question. For those who might need a quick recap, what is the history and the core objective of SEZs in India?
Well, India was actually among the first nations in Asia to adopt the Export Processing Zone, or EPZ, model. That was way back in 1965 with the Canada EPZ. The more comprehensive SEZ policy, as we know it now, was launched in the year 2000. And the specific SEZ Act, which provides the legal framework, was passed in 2005 and came into force in 2006. Their primary objectives are multifold: boosting exports, attracting foreign and domestic investment, generating employment, and developing world-class infrastructure within these designated zones. SEZs operate under a 3-tier administrative structure, with a central board of approval overseeing their establishment and functioning.
Okay, and an important day for a vital sector, MSME Day. What was the focus this year?
Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, or MSME, Day 2025 was commemorated on June 27th. The theme for 2025 was quite apt, enhancing the role of MSMEs as drivers of sustainable growth and innovation.
What are some of the key statistics that really highlight the immense contribution of MSMEs to India's economy? They're often called the backbone.
They truly are. In India, MSME Day 2025 was branded as Udyami Bharat MSME Day. It celebrates over 6.3 crore MSMEs. Collectively, they contribute roughly 30% to India's GDP, a significant 45% to its exports, and employ a vast number of people. Estimates range from 11 crore to 25 crore.
That's a huge employment base.
Massive. It's also noteworthy that about 51% of these MSMEs operate in rural areas, and overall, MSMEs stand as the second largest employer in the country, right after agriculture.
What specific government initiatives are currently in place to support and crucially formalize these MSMEs across the country?
There are several key initiatives. The UDIAM registration portal, launched in 2020, offers free, completely paperless registration, really simplifies the process for businesses to get recognized. Then there's the UDIAM Assist portal, launched more recently in 2023. This specifically helps informal micro-enterprises, the very small ones, to register. This helps them access benefits like priority sector lending from banks.
And any focus on women entrepreneurs?
Yes, there's the Yashasvini campaign, launched in 2024. This has a specific target, achieving gender parity by 2029 on these registration portals. It actively promotes formalization and provides support specifically for women entrepreneurs within the MSME sector.
Finally, in industrial developments, we have recognition for the Jalmarg Vikas project, or JMVP. What's the news there?
The Inland Waterways Authority of India, IWAI, recently received the Sankalp Se City Infrastructure Honor. This award was specifically for the successful implementation of the Jalmarg Vikas project.
What is the scope and the overall impact of this JMVP? What does it involve?
The JMVP was launched in 2018 under the Ministry of Ports, Shipping, and Waterways. It covers an impressive 1,390 kilometers on National Waterway 1, that's the Ganga River, stretching from Varanasi down to Haldia. The project involves developing multimodal terminals at key locations and focusing on fairway maintenance to ensure smooth and reliable navigation for vessels. The World Bank provides crucial financial and technical assistance to this project.
And the impact so far?
Its impact is already being seen. There are now scheduled cargo services operating on this stretch, which is a big step for inland water transport. And it's given a significant boost to river cruise tourism, perfectly exemplified by the successful, widely publicized Ganga Vilas cruise.
Let's dive into how India measures its growth and its key financial indicators now, painting a picture of its, well, economic powerhouse status. We start with a foundational survey, right?
Indeed. We're looking at the Household Income Survey 2026 by NSSO. The National Sample Survey, or NSS, wing of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSS-EPI, has announced the launch of a comprehensive All-India Household Income Survey. This is significant because it's the first ever such survey at this scale, and it's scheduled for 2026.
First ever. What's the core objective? Why is this particular data point so critical for understanding India's economic landscape right now?
The main objective is to collect crucial, reliable data on income distribution and welfare across the entire country. It's designed to reflect the profound structural changes that have undoubtedly occurred in the Indian economy over the past 75 years. This is a truly critical data point because comprehensive, nationwide household income data has been a major missing piece for policymakers and researchers for a long time. Understanding income distribution, not just consumption, is essential for targeted policy interventions and assessing overall economic equity.
Right, income, not just spending. And speaking of India's economic trajectory, the data seems to unequivocally confirm India becoming an economic powerhouse. What are the headline figures?
The numbers are indeed compelling. India officially became the fourth largest global economy in 2025. That's a major milestone. In the financial year 2024-25 alone, nominal GDP grew by 9.9%, and real GDP adjusted for inflation grew by a robust 6.5%. And looking at the longer trend, nominal GDP has actually tripled from about 106 lakh crore in 2014-15 to a massive 331 lakh crore in 2024-25. Just incredible growth in value terms.
How does that impressive growth translate into consumption patterns and trade figures? Are people spending more?
Yes, private final consumption expenditure, or PFCE, basically household spending, grew by 7.3% last year. This was driven significantly by a noticeable recovery in rural demand, which is a positive sign. PFCE reached its highest share of GDP, 61.8%, since way back in 2002-03. So consumption is a strong driver. On the trade front, total exports rose by an impressive 76% over the last decade, hitting U.S. $825 billion in 2024-25. Services exports in particular have shown very significant growth.
And the top export sectors?
The top sectors include engineering goods, electronic goods, a fast-growing area, and drugs and pharmaceuticals. This indicates some diversification in the export basket.
And what about foreign direct investment, FDI inflows? How strong are they, and what does the role of the digital economy tell us about the nature of this investment?
Cumulative FDI inflows reached a staggering U.S. $1.05 trillion between April 2000 and December 2024. That's over $1 trillion over 2 decades. The highest annual inflow peaked at USD $84.84 billion in FY 21-22. And the digital side is booming. Digital transactions, especially via UPI, are just soaring. India accounted for 49%, nearly half of all global real-time digital transactions in 2024.
Almost half the world's digital payments.
Yes, this isn't just about numbers. It reflects a dramatic shift in consumer behavior and financial inclusion. Furthermore, inflation has significantly reduced from earlier peaks, and infrastructure like national highways has expanded dramatically, supporting this growth. A key point on investment. India recorded $114 billion in greenfield investment. That's new projects, not just acquisitions specifically in digital economy sectors over the last 5 years, 2020-2024. This was the highest among all countries in the global south. Shows where the investment focus is.
Well, that's a lot of impressive figures. To truly grasp the scope of this transformation, what does the sheer scale of growth mean for India's position on the global economic stage? Where is it headed?
It's certainly a game changer for India's global standing. India is projected by multiple agencies to be the fastest growing major economy again in 2025-26, with growth likely between 6.3% and 6.8%. The services sector now accounts for 55% of gross value added, or GVA, underscoring its pivotal role in the economy. Investor confidence seems strong, too. Indian corporates raised an all-time high of 1,062,387 crore through initial public offerings, IPOs, in 2024-25.
And the banking sector's health.
Improving significantly. Scheduled commercial banks' gross non-performing assets, NPAs, or bad loans, fell to a 12-year low of 2.6% in December 2024. Shows improved financial health. Looking ahead, the government has ambitious targets, a GDP of $7.3 trillion by 2030 and attracting annual FDI inflows of $100 billion. This indicates not just passive growth, but a strategic trajectory towards becoming a major global economic force, driven by domestic consumption, rapid digital transformation, and strengthening financial fundamentals.
Okay. Next, let's look at insights from the Index of Industrial Production, or IIP. How did that perform recently?
The IIP growth actually eased a bit. It came in at a 9-month low of 1.2% in May 2025. That was down from 2.6% in April 2025. This easing was primarily attributed to a slower rise in the manufacturing sector output, which has the largest weight in the index.
Could you quickly explain what the IIP is and how it's structured? For those who might not track it regularly, what does it measure?
Sure. The All India IIP is a vital short-term economic indicator. It's released monthly by the National Statistical Office, NSO, under MOSPI. It essentially measures the volume of production in the industrial sector. It uses a base year of 2011 and 12 for comparison. It's structured into broad sectoral classifications: mining, manufacturing, and electricity. And it's also broken down by use-based classifications like primary goods, capital goods, intermediate goods, etc., which gives insight into different types of industrial activity.
And the core industries.
Right. There are 8 core industries like coal, steel, cement, electricity, which together constitute about 40% of the total IIP weight. So their performance heavily influences the overall index movement.
Okay. Now, a crucial update on poverty reduction. What are the latest figures and revisions from the World Bank?
This is quite significant. The World Bank recently revised its global international poverty line upwards. It went from $2.15 per day, based on 2017 purchasing power parity, PPP prices, to $3 per day, based on 2021 PPP prices.
So a higher benchmark for extreme poverty globally.
Exactly. But despite this higher benchmark, the data shows India recorded a substantial decline in extreme poverty. It fell to 5.3% in 2022-23, even when measured against this new, higher $3 day line.
That's significant progress even with a tougher measure. So what does this revision and the new data tell us about India's progress in alleviating poverty at different income levels, not just the extreme poor?
Good question. The World Bank also adjusted the poverty line for lower middle-income countries, or LMICs, like India. That line is now US $4.20 per day. The share of India's population living below this line fell sharply from 57.7% back in 2011-12 down to 23.9% in 2022-23. That's a huge reduction in vulnerability.
And the rural-urban divide in poverty.
That saw dramatic improvement, too. Rural poverty under the $4.20 line dropped from 18.4% to just 2.8%. Urban poverty fell from 10.7% to 1.1%, so the gains were widespread. Additionally, the Multidimensional Poverty Index, MPI, which looks beyond just income, declined impressively in India from 53.8% in 2005-06 down to 15.5% in 2022-23. Indicates improvements across various aspects of well-being like health, education, and living standards.
Which states saw the biggest reductions?
States like Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, and Madhya Pradesh accounted for about 2/3 of this total reduction in multidimensional poverty, highlighting where efforts have been most concentrated or effective.
What are the key highlights from the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, or HCES, for 2023-24? Does it align with the poverty reduction data?
Yes, it largely does. The survey reveals that average monthly per capita expenditure, or MPCE, increased in both rural areas, reaching 4,122, and urban areas at 6,996. A notable trend is that the urban-rural consumption gap actually narrowed. It went from 84% in 2011-12 down to 70% in 2023-24, suggesting relatively faster growth in rural consumption, which aligns with the poverty reduction figures.
What about inequality in consumption?
The survey also measured the Gini coefficient for consumption inequality. In 2023-24, it was 0.237 for rural areas and 0.284 for urban areas. These figures reflect a relatively lower level of consumption inequality compared to many other large economies.
Okay, and turning to audits, a new approach to auditing public sector undertakings.
Yes, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the CAG, has created a separate vertical specifically for auditing state PSU's state-level public sector undertakings. This new vertical will cover around 1,600 of these state PSUs. The aim is to enhance auditing efficiency, ensure consistency, and improve data consolidation across all state-level enterprises. This structure mirrors the one already in place for central public sector enterprises, CPSCs, bringing state PSU audits under a more focused and standardized framework.
Next, a revised GDP forecast from a major rating agency.
Right. S&P Global Ratings has raised India's GDP growth forecast for the financial year FY26 to 6.5%. This upward revision is significant because it now aligns perfectly with the Reserve Bank of India's own projection, indicating a growing consensus view on India's strong medium-term growth trajectory.
What about capital expenditure at the state level? How are states contributing to this overall economic momentum through their own spending?
A recent study by the Bank of Baroda projects that just 5 Indian states will account for nearly half, almost 50% of the substantial $10.2 trillion in capital expenditure planned by all states combined in FY26.
5 states doing half the lifting. Which one is leading?
Uttar Pradesh is projected to lead, accounting for 16.3% of the total state capex. Overall, the total capital outlay by 26 Indian states is projected to rise significantly, from $8.7 trillion in FY25 up to $10.2 trillion in FY26. That's a big increase in infrastructure spending plans.
And how are they funding this? Are revenues keeping pace?
Revenue receipts for states are also expected to grow healthily by about 12.3%. GST continues to be the top source of tax revenue for states, projected to account for 44.2% of their own tax revenue, excluding central transfers in FY26. This suggests a reasonably healthy financial position supporting this increased capital spending.
And finally, a significant change is coming to how key economic indicators like GDP, CPI, and IIP are reported. What's happening there?
Yes, this is quite important for how we track the economy. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MSBI, has announced a new base year for GDP, CPI, and IIP starting from 2026.
Okay, new base year. What are the specifics? Which years are being used, and when will we see the new series? How will this impact our understanding of India's economic performance?
Right. So the new GDP series is set to be released on February 27, 2026. It will use the financial year 2022-23 as its new base year, replacing the current 2011-12 base. For the Index of Industrial Production, IIP, the revised base year is tentatively also 2023-23. The new IIP series based on this is expected to be published starting from the financial year 2026-27. And for the Consumer Price Index, CPI, the main inflation measure, the new base year will be 2024. This will be based on the findings of the latest Household Consumer Expenditure Survey, HCES, from 2023-24. The updated CPI series reflecting current consumption patterns will be published from the first quarter of 2026.
So all aligning around 2022-24.
Exactly. All these crucial indicators are released by the National Statistical Office, NSO, under MSBI. Updating the base year periodically is essential. It ensures these indicators more accurately reflect the current structure, composition, and dynamics of the Indian economy, like the growing importance of services or digital sectors. This provides a much clearer and more relevant picture of economic growth and inflation trends.
Let's now zero in on India's external financial position. Things like foreign direct investment and external debt. What can you tell us about India's FDI inflows in April 2025? Was there a surge?
Yes, there was. India's FDI inflows in April 2025 saw a significant surge, reaching $8.8 billion for the month.
Which sectors were the biggest magnets for this investment? Where did the money flow?
Manufacturing and business services were the top performers. Together, they contributed nearly 50%, almost half of the total gross FDI inflows in April 2025. Telecommunication, the broader services sector, and capital goods also received substantial investments during that month.
And what about outward FDI? Indian companies investing abroad.
On the outward FDI front, the top sectors for Indian companies investing overseas included electricity, gas and water utilities, and financial, insurance, and business services. Looking at the bigger picture, India ranked 16th globally in overall FDI inflows recently. And remember that striking figure, $114 billion in greenfield investment in digital economy sectors over the last 5 years, 2020, 2024. That was the highest among all countries in the Global South for digital economy greenfield projects.
Okay. Next, let's turn our attention to India's external debt for 2025. What did the latest RBI data show?
According to the data released by the Reserve Bank of India, India's total external debt rose to $736.3 billion at the end of March 2025. As a percentage of the economy, this constituted 19.1% of India's GDP at that point.
What are the key components of this debt? Is it mostly long-term or short-term? And who holds it?
Long-term debt formed the bulk of it, accounting for $601.9 billion. That was a $60.6 billion rise compared to the previous year. Interestingly, short-term debt maturing within a year actually declined as a percentage of total external debt, falling to 18.3%. However, its ratio relative to foreign exchange reserves ticked up slightly to 20.1%. So something to watch.
And the currency composition, is it mostly dollars?
Yes, the U.S. dollar-denominated debt remains the largest component, making up 54.2% of the total. The share of debt denominated in Indian rupees stood at 31.1%. In terms of instruments, loans are the largest component at 34%, and within that, non-financial corporations are the largest borrowers. The government's own share of the external debt stands at $168.4 billion.
Okay. And how is India's current account balance looking? Do we see a surplus or deficit recently?
We saw a surplus in the last quarter. India recorded a current account surplus of $13.5 billion, which translates to 1.3% of GDP, specifically in Q4 of the financial year FY25, Jan-Mar 2025.
A surplus is good news. What about the full year picture?
For the full financial year 2025, the current account deficit, or CAD, was $23.3 billion. That's about 0.6% of GDP. This is actually a positive sign, as the deficit narrowed compared to the previous year, FY24, when it was $26 billion, or 0.7% of GDP. The improvement was primarily driven by higher net invisibles that includes earnings from services exports, remittances from Indians abroad, and transfers.
What's the outlook for the current account balance going into FY26? What are the expectations?
For the current financial year, FY26, the projections suggest merchandise exports might contract slightly, perhaps by around 3%, largely influenced by volatile petroleum exports. However, services exports are expected to continue their strong growth, projected at around 8%. This robust performance in services will significantly aid in supporting the current account. So the overall forecasted current account deficit for FY26 is expected to remain manageable, likely landing somewhere between 0.9% and 1.0% of GDP. This suggests continued stability in India's external financial position.
Moving to domestic developments, an update on FASTag for toll collection. What's new there?
The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has announced the launch of a new FASTag-based annual pass. This is specifically designed for non-commercial private vehicles. It's set to roll out starting in August.
An annual pass. What are the specifics? How much does it cost? And how will it simplify things for drivers?
The pass is priced at $3,000. It will be valid for 1 full year or for up to 200 highway trips, whichever benchmark is reached first. Its objective is quite practical: to simplify the toll payment process further, and importantly, to reduce congestion and potential disputes at toll plazas. It particularly aims to address that common commuter issue of being charged multiple times at different toll plazas within short distances or on frequent routes.
Remind us quickly about FASTag itself.
Sure. FASTag is the electronic toll collection system using RFID, radio frequency identification technology. It was launched back in 2014 and became mandatory for all four-wheelers from February 2021. And just last year, in 2024, the One Vehicle, One FASTag initiative was launched to discourage the misuse of having multiple tags for a single vehicle.
Okay. And another update on the government e-marketplace, GM portal for public procurement. Which state is leading?
Uttar Pradesh has emerged as the top contributor of the state, doing the most procurement via the gemming portal in the financial year 2024-25. This follows a significant move by UP back in 2024 when it became the first state to fully adopt the portal for all its government procurements. They seamlessly integrated their internal state procurement procedures with the central GEM rules and platform.
Now, a topic that always seems to capture public attention, Indian money in Swiss banks. What do the latest figures from the Swiss National Bank show?
Well, the latest data shows that Indian funds held in Swiss banks actually tripled in 2024. They reached a total of CHF 3.5 billion, that's Swiss francs, which translates to approximately 37,600 crore.
Tripled? That sounds dramatic. What drove that increase?
According to the Swiss National Bank's analysis, this increase was primarily driven by significantly higher holdings through Indian financial institutions and branches based in Switzerland. It wasn't mainly due to individual customer deposits, although those saw a modest increase too. This total figure is the highest level recorded since 2021.
What does this increase indicate, and how are Swiss authorities addressing the inevitable concerns about potential illicit funds or black money?
This rise pushed India's global rank in terms of total funds held in Swiss banks up to 48th from 67th the previous year. However, Swiss authorities are always keen to clarify, and it's important to note that these funds should not automatically be presumed to be illegal or black money. These are aggregate figures, including legitimate holdings. Crucially, India and Switzerland have had an automatic exchange of financial information AEOI framework in place since 2018. Under this, detailed financial account data is shared between the tax authorities of the two countries annually. This increased transparency is the primary tool aimed at combating tax evasion and illicit financial flows.
Right, the automatic exchange is key. Finally, on international economic issues, we have progress on the WTO's agreement on fisheries subsidies. What's the latest development?
Nicaragua formally became the 101st WTO member to accept the agreement on fisheries subsidies. This brings the agreement significantly closer to its official entry into force. Now, just 10 more acceptances are needed to meet the required two-thirds threshold. That's 111 out of the 164 WTO members.
So it's getting close. What happens once this agreement officially enters into force? What are the practical implications?
Once it enters into force, the WTO's dedicated fish fund is expected to open a call for proposals. This fund is specifically for developing and least developed countries, LDCs. It will provide targeted technical assistance and capacity building support to help these nations implement the agreement's provisions effectively. The agreement itself, adopted at the WTO's 12th Ministerial Conference back in June 2022, is a landmark. It sets legally binding global rules aimed at eliminating harmful fisheries subsidies, those that contribute to overfishing and illegal fishing. It specifically prohibits subsidies for illegal, unreported, and unregulated UU fishing, and also subsidies concerning already overfished stocks. It's a major step towards promoting sustainable fishing practices globally.
We've certainly covered a vast amount of ground today, looking at India's social, environmental, economic, and political landscape. Let's just touch upon a few more critical developments that round out our understanding of these recent changes.
Okay. First, a significant move by the International Labour Conference, the ILC. The 113th ILC, held recently in Geneva, adopted the first ever international labor standards specifically designed to prevent and protect workers from biological hazards in the workplace.
First ever standards for biological hazards. Could you help us understand why these new labor standards are considered, well, huge for worker safety? Beyond the obvious protection, what makes this a landmark? And what else was discussed?
They are huge because biological hazards, think viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, pose an often invisible yet pervasive threat in many, many workplaces, from healthcare to agriculture to sanitation and beyond. Having a dedicated international standard provides a crucial, globally recognized framework. It guides countries on how to implement effective protective measures, conduct proper risk assessments, and establish early warning systems. This should significantly improve worker health and safety standards worldwide regarding these specific risks.
Right, a baseline for everyone.
Exactly. Beyond this specific standard, the ILC also held its first comprehensive discussion on achieving decent work within the burgeoning platform economy, the gig economy. That's a critical and complex area for future labor policy globally. They also adopted a resolution aimed at reducing informality in the workforce worldwide, aligning with the goals of the upcoming Second World Summit for Social Development, which will be held in Doha.
Okay. Next, an important climate change conference. The Bonn meeting.
Yes, the Bonn Climate Change Conference 2025. This was technically the 62nd meeting of the UNFCCC subsidiary bodies, or SB62, and it was held, as usual, in Bonn, Germany.
What was its primary objective? What role does this mid-year meeting play in the global climate agenda?
This conference essentially serves as a vital mid-year technical meeting for the UN climate process. Its main objective is to do the groundwork, shape the agenda, advance technical discussions, and build momentum for the major annual climate conference, the COP. This year, it was looking ahead to COP30, which is scheduled for Belém, Brazil, in November 2025. It also provides a platform to review the implementation and impact of decisions taken at previous COPs.
Any key agenda items this time?
A key agenda item under discussion was the Global Goal on Adaptation, or GGA. This is the framework meant to help nations collectively enhance their adaptive capacity, strengthen resilience, and reduce vulnerability to the impacts of climate change. Progress on operationalizing the GGA was a major focus.
Shifting back to employment now, what are the latest projections for the gig workforce in India by 2047? How big is it expected to become?
A recent study by the V.V. Giri National Labor Institute has put out some interesting projections. It suggests that India's gig workforce could reach a staggering 6.2 crore, that's 62 million people, by the year 2047. If that happens, it would form about 15% of India's total non-agricultural workforce. These projections build upon Nini Aayog's earlier report from 2022 titled India's Booming Gig and Platform Economy.
62 million. Are there different scenarios considered? What influences that number?
Yes, the study outlines 3 distinct growth scenarios for the gig workforce by 2047. In a disruption scenario, perhaps slower adoption or more regulation, it could be around 32.5 million. Under a normal growth trajectory, it hits that 62 million figure. And in the case of a boom, very rapid expansion, it could potentially reach as high as 90.8 million workers.
Wow, that's a huge potential range.
It is, and to put it in perspective, back in 2020, estimates suggested around 3 million gig workers were employed by just 11 major platform companies. That number alone was projected by Niti Aayog to grow to 23 million by 2030. So the underlying trend is definitely rapid growth.
Okay. Now, a very practical change for members of the Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO.
Yes, the EPFO has raised the auto settlement limit for advance claims. It's gone up significantly, from the previous 1 lakh to 1 lakh now.
5 lakh auto settlements.
Yeah.
How does this directly simplify things for EPFO members? How does it make the process smoother for them when they need funds?
This change is designed to significantly simplify and, importantly, expedite the process for members needing advances for specific reasons. It means that for advance claims up to 5 lakh submitted for specified purposes like education, marriage, housing purchase, or medical emergencies, no manual human intervention by EPFO staff is required for processing and settlement. The system handles it automatically with a claimed processing time of within just 3 working days.
That's much faster.
Much faster. Remember, EPFO's auto-claim settlement system was initially introduced back in April 2020 during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically for illness-related advance claims. This increase now broadens its scope and efficiency significantly for larger common needs.
In global governance, what are the latest updates from the UN Security Council, UNSC, regarding membership?
The UN General Assembly recently held its annual elections for non-permanent members of the Security Council. 5 countries were elected: Bahrain, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, Latvia, and Liberia. Notably, for Latvia, this will be its first time ever serving on the Security Council. Their 2-year term is set to begin in January 2026, replacing outgoing members.
Could you provide a quick overview of the UNSC's role and its structure for our listeners? What does it do?
Sure. The UN Security Council was established in 1945, along with the UN itself. It's one of the 5 principal organs of the United Nations. Its paramount responsibility, under the UN Charter, is to maintain international peace and security. Its decisions can be binding on all UN member states. It's composed of 15 members, 5 permanent members, China, France, Russia, the UK, and the US, who hold veto power, and 10 non-permanent members. These 10 non-permanent members are elected by the General Assembly for staggered 2-year terms based on geographical representation. India, a founding member of the UN, last served as a non-permanent member for the 2021-22 term, which marked its 8th term on the Council overall.
And relatedly, India was also elected to the United Nations Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, recently.
Yes, that's correct. India has been elected to ECOSOC for the term spanning 2026-28. It was elected under the Asia-Pacific States category. The term for all the newly elected members begins on January 1st, 2026. India will join some of its neighbors, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, who are also currently serving or will be serving on ECOSOC during that period, reinforcing regional representation.
What is ECOSOC? What is its core function within the broader UN system?
ECOSOC is another one of the 6 main organs of the United Nations, also established in 1945. It holds a crucial role in coordinating the economic, social, and related work of the UN system. This includes overseeing 15 UN specialized agencies like WHO, ILO, various functional commissions, and regional commissions. It comprises 54 member states, elected by the UN General Assembly for overlapping 3-year terms, with seats allocated based on equitable geographical representation. It's the central platform for discussing international economic and social issues and formulating policy recommendations.
Yeah. We also have news of an initiative marking the UN's upcoming 80th anniversary.
Yes. Looking ahead to its 80th anniversary in 2025, the United Nations launched the UN80 Initiative back in March. This initiative is internally focused, geared towards enhancing the UN's own operational efficiency, its overall impact on the ground, and its global relevance in a rapidly changing world. It specifically focuses on 3 core work streams: improving internal efficiency and effectiveness, conducting a mandate implementation review, seeing if current mandates are fit for purpose, and exploring potential structural and programmatic reforms for the organization.
Okay. A key development for the BRICS group of nations as well.
Yes, Vietnam became the 10th BRICS partner country. This follows the creation of this new partner country category, which was formally established at the 2024 BRICS Summit held in Kazan, Russia. It's a way to expand the group's outreach without granting full membership immediately.
Who are the other partner countries?
Other countries that are part of this new partner category include Belarus, Bolivia, and Thailand, among others. Vietnam is the latest addition.
Could you provide a quick overview of what BRICS is now and its current full membership composition?
Sure. BRICS is an intergovernmental organization focused on political and economic cooperation. After its expansion, it now comprises 10 full member countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the original 5, plus Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia, who joined more recently. The acronym BRIC was originally coined by economist Jim O'Neill back in 2001. South Africa joined in 2010, making it BRICS. India is scheduled to hold the BRICS chairmanship in 2026.
Now, news of a prominent resignation from a key diplomatic role.
Yes. Amitabh Kant announced his resignation as India's G20 Sherpa. This concludes a very long and distinguished 45-year career in public service for him. He, of course, successfully led India's G20 presidency during the high-profile 2023 summit in New Delhi. That presidency was widely seen as successful, achieving unanimous consensus on the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration and overseeing the significant inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20.
What's the specific significance of a G20 Sherpa? What does that role entail in international diplomacy?
A Sherpa plays a highly critical behind-the-scenes role. They are the personal representative, the lead negotiator, for a head of state or government in the lead-up to major international summits like the G20. They handle the preparatory work, negotiate the final communiques, and essentially guide the entire process for their leader. Beyond his impactful role as Sherpa, it's worth remembering Amitabh Kant was also the longest-serving CEO of Niti Aayog, India's policy think tank, from 2016 to 2022. During that time, he led major policy reforms, including the well-known Aspirational Districts program.
Okay. An important NATO summit has also concluded recently.
Yes, NATO concluded a historic summit in The Hague. Significantly, this was the first time a full NATO summit was hosted by the Netherlands. During this summit, NATO allies agreed to significantly increase their defense spending commitments. They collectively agreed to invest 5% of their GDP in defense. This is a substantial jump from the earlier 2% of GDP benchmark that had been the target for many years.
5%. That's a big shift. What else was agreed?
They also strongly reaffirmed their unwavering commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and security in the face of ongoing conflict. The next NATO summit is scheduled to be held in 2026 in Turkey.
What is NATO's core principle? For those who might not know its foundational commitment, what holds the alliance together?
NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is an intergovernmental military alliance established back in 1949, primarily during the Cold War. Its absolute core principle is collective defense, which is enshrined in Article 5 of its founding treaty, the Washington Treaty. Article 5 states that an armed attack against one member is considered an attack against all members. This collective defense clause, Article 5, has famously been invoked only once in NATO's entire history. That was in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks against the United States.
A significant appointment now in a major multilateral development bank, the AIIB.
Yes, China's former vice finance minister, Zhu Jiai, has been appointed as the next president of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB. Her 5-year term is set to begin in January 2026.
What is the AIIB? What role does it play in the landscape of global infrastructure financing, especially compared to older institutions?
The AIIB was launched relatively recently in 2015. It's a multilateral development bank, MDB, that primarily focuses on financing infrastructure projects across Asia and increasingly beyond. It's headquartered in Beijing. It currently has 110 approved members. Notably, the USA and Japan are not members. The bank is capitalized at US $100 billion and holds a prestigious AAA credit rating from major agencies. In terms of shareholding, China, India, and Russia are its top 3 shareholders, reflecting its significant regional influence and focus. It's seen as both complementing and sometimes competing with institutions like the World Bank and ADB.
Okay. We also have news of an acting CEO appointment for ONDC in India.
Yes, the Open Network for Digital Commerce, or ONDC, has appointed its current Chief Operating Officer, Vipul Jain, as the acting CEO, effective immediately. This follows the departure of the previous head.
For those perhaps still unfamiliar with it, what is ONDC and what is its mission in India's rapidly evolving digital commerce landscape?
ONDC was incorporated as a nonprofit organization back in December 2021 and officially launched its pilot phase in April 2022. It's a really innovative initiative spearheaded by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, under the Ministry of Commerce. Its core mission is fundamentally to democratize digital commerce in India. It aims to do this by creating an open, inclusive, and interoperable network, essentially a set of common standards and protocols rather than a single platform. The goal is to level the playing field, break down silos between existing e-commerce platforms, and make it easier for small businesses and consumers to participate online.
And finally today, an important update regarding GST returns and filing deadlines.
Yes, this is a key compliance update. Starting with the tax period of July 2025, taxpayers will face a new hard restriction. They will not be allowed to file various GST returns, including the main ones like GSTR1, outward supplies, GSTR3B, summary return and payment, and the annual return GSTR9 after 3 years have passed from the respective original filing due dates.
A 3-year time limit. What's the practical impact of this change for businesses and individuals filing GST? Are there any potential challenges this could introduce?
This provision was actually introduced under the Finance Act 2023 and is now being implemented. The primary aim, from the government's perspective, is to enhance system discipline and ensure timely compliance, preventing indefinite delays in filing. However, there is a potential negative impact or challenge. For businesses that might have genuine, unavoidable filing delays, perhaps due to ongoing tax litigation, departmental audits, or even system glitches, this hard 3-year cutoff could be problematic. The concern is that, currently, there doesn't seem to be a specific built-in redressal mechanism for such exceptional cases within this rule. This could potentially result in the permanent denial of legitimate input tax credit, ITC, for those periods, leading to financial losses for the businesses affected. The Goods and Services Tax Network, GSTN, is the implementing agency for this technical change on the portal.
Well, that was truly a comprehensive deep dive. We've managed to cover everything from, specific social programs like sickle cell elimination and drug abuse prevention, all the way to major economic shifts, diplomatic movements, and significant policy reforms like the GST update.
What really stands out to me looking back across all these updates is how interconnected these developments truly are. Whether it's the remarkable improvements we discussed in social protection coverage, the ambitious new infrastructure projects getting underway, or India's clearly growing influence on the global stage. Each piece seems to contribute to a larger unfolding narrative of transformation and, I think, resilience.
It certainly shows India's proactive approach across so many different sectors, addressing both those long-standing difficult challenges and embracing new opportunities presented by technology and global shifts. It feels like a country really building quite actively for the future.
Which brings us to a thought-provoking question for you, our listener. We've talked about the significant expansion in India's social protection coverage and its strong projected economic growth. So how might these powerful converging trends reshape the future of India's workforce and perhaps its overall social equity landscape as we look towards that goal of 2047? What possibilities and maybe what new challenges do you foresee emerging from this intersection of growth and social policy?
Something to definitely ponder as we move forward. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We genuinely hope this comprehensive overview has equipped you with valuable knowledge and useful insights. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and definitely keep informed.